Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? I was just out doing a little gardening. The weather's beautiful lately. So me and my little gardener helper, I'll show you my little gardener helper. I don't get too dizzy here, but here's my little gardener helper. Come over here, Dunk. Come over here and say hi to everybody. Oh, I don't know if you guys seen that or not, but there was a mouse running out from underneath there. That's what he was after. He's a great little mouser. He's only a little puppy, but he got his first mouse the other morning. Oh, wasn't he excited when he got his first mouse? He got his first mouse and he shook the living daylights out of it, and then he didn't want to give it to me, but he did after a while. So everybody in the YouTube world, hey, I know you're a little intense on the mouse right now, but this is Duncan. He's my little gardener helper. The gardening is a little late this time of year for us, but it's such a beautiful weekend. It's a little cloudy right now, but it was sunny, 8-9 degrees this morning. Just fantastic. So I had a bunch of stuff in my garden. I've been busy the last couple of weeks, so I haven't been getting any work out in the garden at all. And then you know what the story is in the Maritimes. Once you get a day off, it's pouring raining, or it's so bloody cold everything's froze. And we have had some cold weather, but in the last 2 weeks we're in an awful nice mild stretch. So I'm out taking advantage of it today. And I was out getting a little bit late, but I was out getting some tulip bulbs and some crocuses and oh, what are the little yellow ones? Daffodils planted. And also getting the hay on my garden. And that's what I started this video out before we get off into hunting for mice with my little dog. Let's see if there's any mice under there. He can get his little nose in those little mouse holes when we get a little bit of snow and the mice start leaving those little mouse runs around the place. Isn't he going to be some fun? Anyway, come on over, little fella, and I want to show you what I do with my gardens. If anybody's ever watched my channel before, you know I garden in hay. And now a lot of people don't quite understand what that is, and I started about 3 years ago, I think, maybe 4 years ago, gardening in hay. And I think I've been doing it long enough now that I'm starting to understand how it works. Like any new gardening technique, I think any which way you garden works, but it all depends on what works for you, and this seems to work for me. We're in a rural area, so I get access to old hay quite often. There's old spoiled hay that either been in the barn too long, or it got rained on when they were making the hay and turned out to be a real poor quality and is not fit to feed to the animals. So a lot of times you're just going to throw it down over a bank somewhere, so I'll bring it home and put it on my gardens. But this here's what I'll show you. This here's a garden in process. So I have this half all buried in hay, and I bury it in about 4 to 5 inches. When it's fluffed up, it's probably 8 or 10 inches. Quite thick and heavy, but of course as it rains it packs down. This here's what the garden looked like before I put the hay on. Now I still have a half a row of carrots there and a few parsnips to dig, and I'm going to dig this as soon as I'm done after the video, and then I'll take that part of the garden and I'll make it look like that part of the garden, and I'll bury it all. Now I leave that hay right there. I'll never take it off again. It will rot and disappear. This hay here was an old weedy patch that I buried last year, and I buried this deep. I buried this 1.5 feet deep in hay, and I planted potatoes in it. That's why I buried it so deep. Had excellent luck with my potatoes. Now you can see in a year's time the hay is still fairly thick, but it's not that deep anymore. There's maybe an inch of hay left over, and then that soil. So that hay rots down, and my biggest helper in the garden for working with the hay gardening is earthworms. You can dig any spot in this garden and you can come out with a fork full of earthworms, fat, middle-sized, little, all different stages, and that hay is constantly rotting down, and the earthworms just love it. And they just come up and they keep eating it and hauling it down into the ground, and it keeps the soil loose, and it's good and it's nutritious soil. I use a little fertilizer, but very little. You can still, if you have some old rotted manure, compost, whatever you call it, and you want to put on the top of that, no problem. Spread it right on the top. Throw a little hay over top of that again, and it just adds to the soil even more. So in the springtime, when I go to plant, all I'll do is I'll take my fork and I'll separate that hay and make a little row, just the same as if you were making any row in a garden. Dig it up a little with my hoe, plant my seeds in it, let it sprout up. Usually, if it's a slow germinating seed, say it takes 2 weeks or so, 2.5 weeks for a seed to germinate. Carrots and things like that are slow. I will have to go in through at the 10-day, 2-week mark and weed a little. And then as the plant comes up, I just pull the hay in tight to the plant. If it's a bigger thing like an onion or a transplant that you're putting out, just make a little hole and plant it and tuck your hay in around it. You never have to worry about a weed again. The weeds are completely done for that year. If it does get a little weedy, if you see this got weedy on me. I had corn planted down there, which was hard to weed in amongst. And same with the tomatoes. Weeds grew in underneath the tomatoes. I don't pay any attention to it. I leave it right there, and I'll just bury it this fall. And over the fall and winter, it'll rot down and be just fine come spring. And that's all I do in the hay garden. I used to keep a little spot of garden. This, I think, is about 20 by 20. It goes down to there, down to here, back. It's about 20 by 20. I used to fight to keep a spot 20 by 20 free of weeds, and the weeds would grow up in amongst the beets, and you go to pull the weeds out, and you pulled all the beets out, and you get mad, and you hold the hoe works under. And I had very little luck. It took all I could just to keep this 20 by 20 and spend all our new weed in one row. Drive me nuts. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 patches that I grow this size. At half the work is what it took to keep this. But you need hay. You need it. Don't even, if you don't have access to all kinds of hay, don't even think about gardening like this. Some people can't stand it because it's a bit too, what they call a bit of a messy garden. And it is. It's a bit of a messy garden. I won't shy away from that at all. But it looks pretty once the plants are all up growing and produce well. So it doesn't really matter to me what it looks like in between times. So that's a bit of hay garden. Oh, I'll show you the tulips that are planted. If anybody wants, I get my little dog down here and he's all tangled up in the rocks looking for mice. Come on, Duncan, let's go up and look at the tulips that we planted. He's only a little puppy, let's say 8-10 months old. He's a little wire-haired dachshund, and he is a riot to work with in the garden. Now don't be digging my bulbs back out. But oh, he's a lot of fun to work with in the garden. He's a busy little boy. But I planted some. I know it's late for planting. I probably should have had these in October. But the temperature lately feels like it's October, so that's close. But these were on 60% off sale in the local home hardware bin, and I couldn't pass them up. Opened them up, and they looked like pretty decent bulbs. So I said, heck, what do I got to lose? So I planted some orange tulips, and then I also planted, this was a tray thing that you bought. If you can see here, if the wind stops blowing, you can see you're just supposed to take and plant the tray in the ground. I thought that was a bunch of foolishness. So all I did was tear the top off the tray and dumped all the bulbs out, and I planted the bulbs in the soil. They'll do just fine weather. I don't know why they come out with these gimmicks sometimes to try to make gardening easy. Well, there's nothing easier than just putting a bulb in the ground. You don't need a tray like that, but anyway, that's just my opinion. It's like anybody's. Here I planted blue crocuses. I've never had crocuses before. I always love them because they come up the earliest in the spring, give you hope spring's coming. Daffodils, and then the orange tulips. So I think that'll be quite pretty. Anyway, my battery light's flashing and this is getting a little long-winded. I just hope everybody's having a great fall gardening season. I dug out some gladiolus bulbs that I would be gladly to give to somebody if anybody was local and wanted them, pun intended. And we planted, if my dog stops, don't be eating the glad bulbs. There's decent looking glad bulbs. They were mostly purple glads. I'm not a big fan of the glads. They grow up. If you don't support them, they fall over. The color doesn't look all that great. I grew them for last year. I won't grow them again. I think more if I was going to have to do into the digging up the bulb thing, I think I'd be more into like a dahlia or something like that. I think those are quite pretty and come out in some really nice colors. But the glads, I grew them for a year or two. Didn't really impress me either year that I grew them, so probably won't be doing them again. But now with the tulips, if you don't get them dug, that's fine. And when you go to dig up your tulips, they multiply, and you can give some more away, expand your tulip bed. If you forget about them and leave them in for the winter, that's fine too. So I like tulips. Anyway, goodbye from me. Goodbye from my little wiener dog, because he wants to go find some more mice. If I don't see anybody before Christmas, Merry Christmas everybody. I wish all the best to you. Got my bit of a beard on for the winter. Where I work next summer is going to have a beard growing contest, so I'm getting an early start this year. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to stand to grow a beard in the summertime. I never have in my life, and I don't know if I can even stand it. But it's not till July, so if I can survive June and July with a beard on my face, that'll be interesting. So I might be clean shaven come June if the beard drives me crazy by then. But have a great Christmas everybody, and all the best to you.